What's going on, YouTube fam? It's your boy Church Takes. We're back at you guys with another one. So basically, Danny from the Stop and Talk FNF, they put out a response to uh, Homeroom University's response to their first particular video. So basically, is there a homeroom and a Danny from the Stop Talk FNF beef? It looks like there is. I mean, there's definitely content going back and forth. We'll see. We'll see. We'll see. My first take is basically I like the aesthetic view. Like I like how it looks. You guys you definitely turned up on the look. It looks very calm, it looks very peaceful. It looks like a nice space to curate content. So shout out to you guys for the nicer look. I'm more of a lighter base kind of visual person when I look at my pods, but I can't front. I do like what you guys the background. I like the scenery. Moving forward, let's just go into Talk FNF's joke to open up the pod, stating that nobody flew him here. I asked if there was beef. Yeah, I mean that was funny. That was funny because basically, I don't know if you guys know, but if you're here, you probably know that Joe Budden flew Homeroom out to Jersey because they're based in the Carolinas, I believe. So he flew them up. So Talk FNF basically was like, "Yo, listen, I flew myself, and nobody fly me up here." I thought for him to start the pot off like that was hilarious because that was one of the main points from his first video or from him and Danny's first video. With that being said, let's just go on and get into to a few of these takes. It was about a 32-minute clip, so we'll just get into what we got to get into for right now. Basically, it's not far fetched to know that Jay Nobles isn't media trained. I mean, you could just tell by his takes and how he speaks. I sorry, Jay Noble. Shout out to you guys, but I'm just saying you can tell. I didn't know that all of them weren't necessarily media trained, but what I can say is that I can tell from somebody that hasn't been in media and somebody who hasn't been media trained. I can tell that your boy Jay Nobles isn't media trained. So, moving on. They stated that so Homeroom was saying that Danny stole shampoo. Danny put out there that shampoo reached out to Danny for a show. That's very, very, very interesting. So, I mean, I think Shammy, he was just trying to get that Blue Chew bag, and Danny was like, "Why not?" So, shout out to you guys for that, for getting to the bag and for also creating content. At the end of the day, it's not about the bag; it's about creating the content that you like to create, and whatever comes with that, that it comes with that. So, shout out to you guys for that. But that was very interesting. I didn't know that. Let's go to the next take. Wait, they had a show cooking up. Oh, yeah. So Danny pretty much put out that they had a show cooking up with Adam 22, Flacco, and potentially AJ. That's kind of wild. I had no idea that that show was being talked about. I'll get to a later point. Um, I'll get to another take, but later on. But that was kind of fire. I didn't even know that you guys were even talking about having a show together. So shout out to y'all. I think personally, and this is an opinion. You could call it a take, call it an opinion, call it whatever you want. I think Joe manipulated this entire beef. He did say that he woke up and got his coffee ready to hear the entire 3 hour and 30 some odd minute pod that Homeroom put out. I wasn't invested into their content like that to sit there and listen to 3 hours of those gentlemen speak. So I can't necessarily say that I heard the whole video, but what I can say is I think Joe did because I think Joe curated this beef. I mean, Joe likes to curate beefs. Joe is low key the reason why Drake got put. They almost zipped Drake up. They almost zipped him up, but Drake is a mastermind himself. So, but Joe curated that entire thing from way back when. We're talking about from even when Rory and Maul was on the pod. He was trying to curate something up to get this guy out out of here. But that's just my opinion. That's just my take. Now let's move on. I could be wrong, but I think it was more so of a PR thing on the four names that couldn't be mentioned. So when Homeroom had went up to Joe's pod, basically they were saying that there was four names that couldn't be mentioned, and I mean, I just don't. I just think that those four names are just basically for PR purposes, not to get those guys into any trouble, not to get Joe in any trouble, not to get anybody in any trouble. I mean, what's the point of getting in trouble if you're trying to grow and just create content? Um, Next take. Shout out to the X Spaces. It's kind of fire. I mean, if you're here this early listening to my videos, chances are you're probably coming from the spaces. So, shout out to all of you guys that are listening. Shout out to all of you guys that will be listening in the future. And shout out to all of the spaces. Shout out to all of the participants in the spaces as well. Um, there's so many to mention. Just shout out to everybody. Shout out to Rock, Big Rock. Shout out to everybody in the space. Danny, Absurd, Joe, Imani. There's so many people to mention. Um, so shout out to everybody that's in the spaces, creating this as we go. So shout out to y'all, all of y'all. If I didn't mention y'all, let me know and I'll mention you. Moving on. Again, yeah, and let's not stop with the shout outs. If I'm gonna shout everybody out in the spaces, I gotta shout out everybody that's making the content for us to be in the spaces. So shout out to Joe and the crew. Shout out to Danny from the stop. Shout out to Talk FNF. Shout out to Menace and all of those gentlemen up there. Shout out to Rory and Maul. Shout out to anybody. Shout out to me. Shout out to everybody who's creating content, and shout out to everybody who's creating premium content and putting it out there for the masses to observe and look at. I mean, I think it's dope. And I think a lot of people are way beyond or way ahead of their time. Moving on. Man, so there was a video where I was calling J Nobles. I was calling him JJ Nobles because I seen just J Nobles and it was like JJ Nobles at Instagram or whatever. So I was calling him JJ Nobles the whole time. Um, And it's funny because when I wrote the take, I said not JJ Nobles, not standing on business, but his name is J Nobles. So let me put some respect on your man's name. Not J Noble standing on business. You got to be careful calling women out of their name, and you have to be careful what you say about another man's girl. And then to have your podcast, uh, a mic come on and say, yo, fam, if you're gonna say something, you kind of gotta stand on your square and not look for help. He was ready to roll the tape. He said, yeah, we could go to the clip because I'm not even trying to do this. And then he was pretty much saying that you gotta stand on your square, fam. If you're gonna say something on a pod, in the Carolinas, you gotta say it. You gotta stand on your square. You just gotta back it up. You can't be switching up. So yeah, shout out to AJ for letting them know that on air. I mean, that was I thought that would have been a conversation that they would have had to themselves, but whatever. Um Now, to get back to that point that I was talking about, that show that Danny was talking about with Flacco and possibly AJ, with all three of those guys' base, like you take Danny from the stop, you take his base, right? You take Flacco's base, and you take AJ's base. That would have created a platform that would have been fire. I mean, somebody needs to think about possibly getting something like that done. The only thing that I didn't like about that possible setup was the fact that it wasn't going to be created on neither of their platforms, which would have gave it the impression that like you're working for, somebody else or whatever the case may be. But I mean, in the beginning, if you need to take a bag, or if you need to take a separate and a separate opportunity and still create your opportunity, I mean, I don't see that there's anything wrong with that. But also, I don't know if I would necessarily want to, there's a lot of details. I don't know if I would necessarily um take the opportunity if you were building something like how they are building it. Talking about homeroom. So I'm not mad at AJ for not doing it. Um, but I also can say that if they did do it, it would have been phenomenal. It would have worked. I think it would have worked because you're talking about three consistent mother effers. You know what I'm saying? Like these guys are relentless. They don't stop, and they want to become. They just keep putting one foot in front of the other. And then when you have a three-headed monster like that, Lord of mercy. So shout out to you guys. And maybe relook into that. Now, basically, that's almost about it. That's almost about all. I will give the impersonation of Tone. I'll give it like a C plus, maybe a B minus for effort. That's really all I have to say on that. Um, and yeah, shout out to all of those. Shout out to the Danny from the Stop. Shout out to Talk FNF. I know I give a lot of shout outs, but hey, I like to give shout outs. So with that being said, let's get on up out of here. Um, Before we do though, let's give a special shout out to Manhattan Gray. Go ahead and go to manhattangray.com. Go get yourself a nice hair care package. Basically, if you have gray hair or if you don't, you can keep your hair moisturized, you can keep it looking shiny, and you can keep it looking healthy. Um, yeah, go check it out. ManhattanGray.com. Let them know that your boy Church Takes sent you. And that is it. That is all. We are out. Thank you for watching, or thank you for listening, I should say. And do me a favor, like, comment, or subscribe. And just remember that Church's takes are the best takes. We out.